It is time, everybody, for another Launching Life's Journeys podcast powered by Heartland RV. Today's guest, it's a big one. Brian Searl. He has been in the industry for a long time, very, very well known. He's built quite an empire with his full-service digital marketing agency. But today, we want to focus on all the value that he is delivering to everybody, whether you're a consumer, somebody in the industry like us as a manufacturer, maybe even a supplier, a campground, an association, and you want to get some publicity, you want to get some exposure, and you want to be connected to the ultimate resource for all things outdoor hospitality. Well, good news. You're going to learn all about Modern Campgrounds with the founder and CEO, Mr. Brian Searl. Brian, thank you for taking some time to come on the Launching Life's Journeys podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Will. Greatly appreciative of you. And I can't say I've watched your show, but I'll try in the future. Just my time is very limited, right? But I've heard great things about you.
Sounds good. And we're just getting it started as well. So one of the goals, as I kind of outlined before we were talking here before we went online, just really, it is impressive to talk to so many people in the industry, companies like CampSpot, associations like RVIA, and outdoor associations like RVIC. So many people know who you are. You've been in the industry for well over a decade. I think 2008, 2009 was when you started with the digital marketing agency. And
Yes.
so, you've obviously built up quite a big network. People know exactly who you are. What was the goal when you launched recently Modern Campground?
So I think when we launched Modern Campground, which was in August of 2021, my goal was really to provide something that we felt the industry as a whole was lacking, right? There are great news websites out there, Woodall's Campground Magazine, RV Business, RV News, right? There's a ton of them out there. But we felt kind of there was a missing piece with wrapping it all together in one neat little package. And that doesn't mean that we're better than what exists out there. It just means that I think we're doing it a little bit differently, and maybe some people like that, maybe some people like something else, right? And so our goal was to kind of cover it in a way from a global perspective, because to me, everything is all tied together, right? And this is something we preach on our podcast, right, that we'll talk about later. But we try to be cognizant of the fact that the RV industry is tied to outdoor recreation, is tied to state parks and public lands and private campgrounds, and we all kind of work together to create this ecosystem where people have an opportunity to get outside, to really enjoy the outdoors and connect with nature. And so from our perspective, there are lessons to be learned from Australia, who has a more modern campground experience, right? Well,
Yep.
Modern camper, right? That was unintentional, but a more modern camping experience, whereas the UK maybe has been in glamping for longer. And so I think there are lessons that we can take from all over the world. And so that combined with the RV industry being connected more with private campgrounds, seeing how those stories weave together was our priority.
Yeah, and I think you've done a remarkable job. I mean, that's obviously you came to our attention. I think when I was at the Tampa show, some people came up to me and said, "Man, have you seen, Modern Campground? What's really unique about what you have built is, some of the other names that you had mentioned and some of the other associations, but without question, they do a great job, but they're very niche focused. I would say, like you had mentioned, RV Business, they primarily just focus on specifically our industry, right? And when you go to your website, it's one thing to talk about it like we're doing now from a strategy standpoint, but what really impresses me is how you have been able to implement everything to make it so easy to navigate for anybody that's going to Modern Campground for the first time. So just to give everybody a little context, if you go to moderncampgrounds.com, just as Brian was saying, they are all things outdoor hospitality, not just here in the US of A, but we're talking Canada, Europe, Asia, Australia, Africa. So truly worldwide news information as it relates to the entire outdoor hospitality industry. So it does cover companies like us, an RV manufacturer, the RV industry, maybe new releases, park information, campgrounds. So if you're a campground owner, huge reasons, and we're going to get into some of that too, of aligning yourself with Modern Campground, but caravanning, park news, events. You'll even highlight some of the events, and it's again so easy to navigate on your website. So I'm really impressed with that. The other thing I'm really impressed with too is, again, to take a vision and then implement it. You've obviously scaled very quickly. And if you want, you can get into some of the metrics or the exposure that you're providing, prospective business partners to associate, maybe look at advertising with Modern Campground. Can you just kind of talk about from when it started to just really the breadth of exposure that you are bringing to everybody weekly. I know that you have a podcast, the Modern Campground Fireside Chat, every Wednesday, 2 p.m. How much exposure are you delivering out to the marketplace these days?
I mean, the answer is it varies week to week, right?
Yep.
Somewhere our traffic is somewhere between 30 and 50,000 people a month on Modern Campground, which to me
Wow.
is good, right? For our beginning goals, like we have a lot of aspirations. We'd love to continue to grow that audience and be bigger, right? But
Yeah.
ultimately, my intention with Modern Campground is to provide value to the RV
Yep.
industry, to suppliers, to manufacturers. We don't really target consumers yet, but eventually we might,
Okay.
to campground owners and things like that, right? And so advertising obviously helps us with our team and to create more content and things like that. But we never really started it with a goal of being an advertising powerhouse. We started it with the goal of providing value, making it easy to use, as you noted, in any way we possibly can. So that's where we're going to kind of take it. If advertising follows that, great. If it doesn't, then we're still here to provide value.
Well, and I think, like I said, actions over words, you're proving it, because if you go on to moderncampgrounds.com today, everything is free. You can access everything, all of your news, all the releases from your editing team, all the stories that you have, all the information. So as you just said, not only is it easy to navigate, it is free. So attention, everybody. If you want a free resource, go to Modern Campground. Let's speak a little bit too about just businesses, right? So, I mean, obviously, I went through a lot of the podcasts that you've had. You bring on a lot of guests. And without getting specific into any given guest, I would expect that, again, your goal of having this weekly podcast is to distribute that information freely to the people so they get more information. And I think you've done a great job with that. If there's businesses that are listening, or campgrounds, a lot of small campgrounds, as you know better than me with your years of experience, they don't have giant marketing budgets. So what would be your recommendation of somebody that's maybe in the outdoor hospitality industry and they would like to maybe, get involved or work with you? What are some of the things that you could do to help those types of companies?
So if you're talking from a small campground perspective, right, I've got my other hat on that we're not going to talk about too much, but it's insider perks, right? And
Yep.
so the first response for me for that is don't advertise with me,
Okay.
which is an interesting response, right? But I
Yep.
think that there's long been this list of people who are willing to take money from you as
Yeah.
an RV industry supplier or a manufacturer or a campground owner or whatever that may be, right?
Yep.
And most of those people are great. They do a great job. They offer a great product and service. But when you're talking about a perspective of if you're a small supplier or a manufacturer or a small campground owner, there's a finite amount that you have as an advertising budget to spend.
Right.
So when you're dealing with where do I spend that money to get the best return on my investment, it's not a place like me. I'm not in your top 10. And we could go down through another list, right? But we're not going to call out specific people.
Right.
But it's Google. Like, you need to have a presence on Google, number one, first. You need to have a good website. You need to have a good SEO, right? Then you need to be on social media, because that's where people's eyeballs are. And then you just keep going down the list, right? Google ads, things like that.
Yeah.
So you check down your list of highest ROI first.
Okay.
And then if you have money after that's over, right, then go and explore some other places. Like, I don't even know if I would say Modern Campground is part of that from a private campground standpoint, because we don't have
Sure.
that consumer audience yet. But that's kind of where I go with it in my head. Same thing
Okay.
for any business.
Yeah, sure. And I also noticed too, as I mentioned in the intro, you have a fantastic directory database that you've put together that, again, is accessible to everybody to go in and get. If there are, maybe, like I said, some of these listeners that maybe aren't on that directory, how do they go about getting a hold of Modern Campground to be a part of that, or to share that information with you?
So if you go to our resources, the main page, I think, has a form at the bottom, but I think every single category has a form at the bottom too.
Okay.
And our goal with that resources directory was to provide value, right? So to
Yeah.
us, if you're a campground owner in this case, or any business, right, looking for a supplier or looking for a product or service, to us, every single business that provides a good product or service, which is not for me to judge, right? But it's pretty
Right.
easy to tell if you're a shady company, right? So
Right.
99% of people we're going to put on that website, and we're going to put there for free with a description of what you offer. Sometimes that's pulled from our website. Sometimes you can provide that to us, as well as a phone number. I think we do a phone number and then at least a link back to your website on there.
Okay. Awesome. So for everybody listening,
To be, yeah.
for everybody, Yeah. So for everybody listening, if you do want to get involved, get in on that forum right on the website, just as Brian kind of outlined. I do want to change things up a little bit too, and I just want you to take just a couple minutes and talk about the fireside chat, your weekly guest, and what tell us a little bit about your show every week.
So I think it's the same goal as Modern Campground, right? Like we wanted to the fireside chats actually came out of the pandemic in some ways. And
Okay.
it was started as a way to keep people informed about what was happening, the rapid changes, all those kinds of things. And then obviously it's evolved since then, right? To encompass more topics. But our goal was simply to have guests on there that could provide value to primarily in the beginning campground owners. We have evolved and we have an RV industry show now too. But to give people that just wide knowledge that wasn't disseminated anywhere before, right? To have those conversations with CEOs and executives and campground owners and to share their insights and their knowledge and the things they've learned along their path through life that other people can learn from. So don't spend 4 years solving what's already been solved by somebody else. Listen to their expertise and shortcut that for you.
Absolutely. And I think it's clear to me that, your resume, you've done a very, very good job of doing that, is finding resources with great people and then finding out how to shortcut and build quite a name that you have, Mr. Searl. On a personal note, for people to get to know you, obviously, given the backdrop that you have today, you certainly are somebody that I would expect does enjoy the outdoors. So where would you say are your top two places in all your travels that you really enjoy?
Well, before I get into the personal thing, real quick, I do want to say that it's not just me who's responsible for this, right? We have
Okay.
an amazing team. Our
Yep.
editor, Akari Nakano, we've got writers Rain Tierney, Mal Mendoza, Shar Ibrahim, right? These guys are the people who really make the magic happen every day. So we can't just go through without mentioning them, right?
Sure,
I'm a very big
absolutely.
part of
Yeah.
it. But from a personal standpoint, what your question is asking top two places that I really love, right? I mean, number one is where I live.
Yeah.
So in February of 2021, I'm American. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. But in February 2021, I moved to Canada, to Calgary, Canada. So that's where I'm in British Columbia right now, but I normally live
Okay.
in Calgary. So to me, that's one of the best places that I've ever seen in my life. And through a combination of the city and the access and the restaurants and all those things, but also the proximity to places where I'm sitting right now, right? 45 minutes from Banff National Park and
Wow.
just endless, from Calgary to Vancouver, you could spend 9 lifetimes exploring hiking trails and water and kayaking and all those, right?
Yeah.
And you're never going to run out of places. So to me, I don't know if that's an exact place, but I'm going to steal that and make it one of my choices, right?
Yeah.
And then I would say, it's really a toss up because there's so many beautiful places throughout this world. But I think I'm most connected to the places that have mountains, lakes, rivers. The ocean is nice, but to me, I'm more of a hiking trail guy.
Yeah.
And there are so many of those places I've been blessed to see on
Yeah.
both coasts, but primarily in North America so far.
That's awesome. And from the voice of the founder and CEO of Modern Campground, Brian Searle himself, I want to end this with one more question before we let everybody know where to connect best with Modern Campground. If you were to challenge everybody to try and travel a little bit more, not just because of post-pandemic and what the marketing of the industry has done, and it really has accelerated more people to travel on the open roads more than they ever have. A lot of the conversations I always have, Brian, with people is, they'll live in their own state or province, and they don't even see all the beautiful things within their state or province alone, let alone traveling throughout North America. But obviously, it's a special place for you. I've had some pretty amazing experiences, but just for all of our listeners to hear from you, a founder and CEO of a business, why do you think, or what's probably what some of the biggest benefits you believe in going out and exploring more?
Honestly, I'd say your mental health and your soul, right?
Yeah.
And so this is different for every single person. It's a different answer for everybody in the whole world. For me, that's rivers and mountains. Like, it doesn't matter how many times we were talking on the show yesterday, right? Like I moved to Florida and lived there for a couple years, 9 minutes from the beach. And you hear wherever you live, right? I'm always going to go to the beach every single day. It's amazing. Or I'm going to go to Disney World because I'm 45
Yeah.
minutes away. And then you never go. And
Right.
then every time people fly in to see you for your relatives, what do you want to do? Disney. Oh, you really want to go to Disney World? But when I moved to Canada, rivers and mountains, like I can drive by those 400 times and I never get tired of seeing them. It's just
Yeah.
something that connects with my soul, with my mental health, right? And that is different for every single person. but that's the primary reason to get out and explore, right?
Yep.
If that's an RV park, if that's a river, if that's kayaking, if that's the beach, if that's whatever, find what, and you'll feel it. You can't describe it, but you'll feel it. And that's why.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And more importantly, I appreciate, because I know you're very, very busy, you and your amazing team, who I've already gotten to know a few of your teammates, but just really amazed and proud of what you've put together. Again, a full resource for everybody that wants any information on all things outdoor hospitality. Can people find Modern Campground on any of the social media platforms? If so, if you'll just kind of give the rundown and end with your website.
As far as I know, we're everywhere. We even just started a TikTok channel where we're just putting some video clips out that people
Okay.
really probably don't want to watch on TikTok, but we just wanted to be there, right? In case.
Yep.
But as far as I know, everywhere, right? TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, places like that. And obviously you can find us online at moderncampground.com. We're just trying to be as valuable as possible. So we'd love to hear your feedback. If you have any ways that we suck and we can be better, we definitely want to hear from you, because we will make it better. We're listening to everybody.
Brian, it is a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking some time to share a little bit about you and your amazing team and Modern Campground. Thank you so much for being a guest of the Launching Life's Journeys podcast.
Thank you so much, Will. I appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to checking out more of your show.
I'm Will Miller, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Launching Life's Journeys podcast, brought to you by Heartland RVs. Stay tuned for our next destination.